Moshi wanainuka, Moshi wanaona haya, wanainuka, Moshi wanainuka, Moshi wanaona haya.
Hello world, this is DJ Craven and you're listening to the Craven Happiness Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to part 2 for the Kilimanjaro group. In a moment here, you'll be able to experience the second part of some action-packed stories for a group that traveled with me to Kilimanjaro. So take a look, listen, and hope you enjoy it. Next thing I've got to ask, because I have had the same questions asked to me. So what was the most question you like? So how many times have you been asked the same question over and over again from other people? Obviously not in this room. For me, I had probably 2 or 3 questions that everybody asked me. Everybody asked me what they were. So does anybody else have that experience where they've been asked the same question?
Everybody asks me what's next.
What's next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you
I've
do it
gotten that
again?
a lot.
People
That
ask,
one
would
too.
you do it again?
Yep. Yeah. Would you do it again?
It took how long?
Yeah.
They think it's a day hike.
Yeah.
I feel like.
How
yeah.
many days? And then, oh
And
my
where's
God.
that?
Yeah.
Like that.
How was the summit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What did you eat?
Yeah.
Everyone says, "What did you eat?"
Yeah. And then how was the altitude from a breathing standpoint? Those are you guys said all the other ones. That was the other one that I always got. What I describe about that, how I describe it is that I usually back away from them for about like 3 feet, so they're 3 feet in front of me. And I said we were walking in a line generally, and when you wanted to cover the gap between me and you were out of breath by the time I got to you. That's how I describe it.
Yeah.
Because if you wanted to
If
you wanted to do anything quickly,
Mhm.
you were out of breath and you had to take your
Yeah.
time to get
That's
back
right.
into breath.
That's right.
That was different at different elevations certainly, but that's how I describe it when the upper elevations.
I was, the best way that I could describe to them how much it impacted me on summit day was, and the thing that sticks in my mind is they kept telling us you have to eat, you need sugar, you need water, and it was so exhausting, and they wanted us to have sugar, so I remember having peanut M&Ms. It was so exhausting to reach in my pocket, even though my pocket was unzipped, with an open container of, like, cardboard container of M&M peanuts. It was so hard and exhausting for me to do that and put it in my mouth and actually chew it, that I put it in my neck like scarf and would go. Because
I did not
it
know
was
that.
too exhausting. Like
That's
I
awesome.
felt that horrible, and then I felt that sick that I knew I needed to eat. It was like when you get over the stomach. What? That's how bad I felt. Like
Yeah.
that's the best way that I can describe it. They're like, whoa.
I think they sell hoodies like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what it was. I like poured them. So I finally just poured
just
them in
wear one of
there, and
those.
every once in a while,
Keep
it
my
would take me.
snacks.
I felt like 5 minutes to eat one M&M peanut
Yeah.
because I was that nauseous and just didn't want to eat it.
You know.
But I'm like, I need to eat, But and then them putting the mango juice, which I didn't like, when we got to that first summit, in my mouth, like putting the straw in my mouth and saying, drink this. Like,
Yeah.
okay. But that you're just out of breath all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exhausted.
So one question I was going to ask everybody, because that is definitely one of the most things, is kind of like what's next, or like would you do it again? That's the question that I think I get asked probably somewhat the most. I have somewhat changed it a little bit since I was there, but I'm curious about what this group. So, Jay, would you do it again?
Now that I've done it, I don't see a need for me to do that. I like to do something different.
Mhm.
Maybe not as physically and mentally as challenging, but I guess that was part of the experience, is doing it once and saying, okay, there's other things I want to do, and that was a big deal. I mean, you're talking about preparation for a year.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's expense. There's all the things that go into that. I'm so glad I did it, but I don't at all think that I need to do it again.
Yeah.
Although it would be a different experience with different people and all that, I'm like, let's do something different. And honestly, maybe this group decides to do something, and that would be a strong pull. But for me, it's like, okay, I've done that.
Yeah.
Now I want to try something else.
Yeah, which I imagine would be common, but what everybody else? Anthony would.
I would like to try it again.
Yeah.
I would like to challenge myself more by going up like within a day. From listening to one of our guys, Frederick, he mentioned you can take it on within a day. So
Mhm.
I would like to do that just to challenge myself to see if I can make it.
The whole
Yeah.
thing in a day?
A whole thing within
That
a day.
same trail?
No, different trail.
Different
Just
trail.
going at it, full throttle.
Just
I would
attacking
like
it.
to just see how I
I'd
can
be
do
interested in that.
Yeah.
I don't want to,
interested in him doing it.
I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in that.
What about you ladies down at the end?
I would do it again.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The only way I would do it again is if my daughter said, "Hey, I'd like to do that." Totally be on board. Yeah.
That was my answer.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, my kids in 15 years say, "Hey, I want to do this, and I really want you to go with me, Daddy."
Yeah.
I'm in.
And yeah, absolutely.
I think my verbatim on the summit was,
Yeah.
if the boys want to do this, I'm not going. You go, I'm not going. I'm never doing this again, never doing it again, never, not in a million years. And now, you know,
No, hold on.
no.
She said, you said verbatim, so let me get this verbatim.
Let's get the verbatim
She
right.
said, I've had 3 children. This is worse than having any child. And she said this in Elevation before I started to black out. And I remember thinking,
I'm gonna keep this in my pocket.
like, if actually ever complains about childbirth, I've got a little.
That's right. You're still working on number 4, aren't you, Dawn?
Oh yeah.
No, but every time, I guess it's natural though. Like as you get further away from things that were very difficult, it softens. You know what I mean? Because that day was not fun for me. I really enjoyed the whole experience as a whole, but I remember saying like, I'll do parts of the trails. I'll do Bronco Wall again. I'll do a couple days, maybe not the whole thing.
I actually thought that would be really cool to be able to just do the hike the first 6 days and camp there and just people watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and do a part of it. But
Especially since you've been through that experience.
Do the wall.
yeah, I know. I mean, talking about it and all this, it does make it more nostalgic. So I don't know. I don't know now. If the kids did one day, I'm sure that would be a big pull. So
Yeah,
I'm
certainly.
a softie in that way. So maybe.
I can see outside of the kids. I would see more something else. You know, I mean, I definitely have. I'll admit that I've Googled other things and just to see what else is out there.
What'd you find for us?
The itches there.
There were some issues, yeah, definitely. Some of the ones that I found, there's just too much time. I mean, like, I was like, it'd be cool to go to Antarctica and like go to the South Pole. I mean, it's like months. It's like 4 months or something, whatever it is.
I'm
It's
reading
like
a book about that
it's like
right now.
months gone.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Way to
well,
go.
okay,
To
that's
the
too much time.
actual
Yeah.
Polls.
To go to the actual polls. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to do that, but I'll tell you that's really rising to the top of one of the things I want to do. I want to hit 7 continents before I can.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because you mentioned that even on the trip at one point, and that's definitely bucket listed now that I've gone to that one.
To the point where there's a it's not anywhere near what we're talking about in terms of physicality, and it's not months, but there is going to be a cruise off South America, and actually you go to Antarctica as part of it. So I'll keep you all posted, let you know if you want to do it. But I can tell you, my wife actually is open to the idea, as long as she can stay on the ship and she doesn't want to go.
Step off.
Yeah, she doesn't
You
want
gotta
to go.
you gotta step off though.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
She doesn't have to.
well, that's not her bucket.
It's not her bucket.
It's not her bucket list. So
But you will.
yeah, that would be the whole point.
Next question I had is that what would you do differently? Now that you've gone, you've done it, you've gone as far as we've gone, we've come back. Have you thought about it at all? Maybe you wouldn't do anything differently. That could be an answer. But what would you do differently?
Literally not a thing.
Me neither.
No?
I would.
Try the Diamox before I go.
Yeah.
So Diamox, everybody took Diamox except for Jenny. Jenny's alert.
Well, I kind of forced you into it.
I took Diamox.
It didn't help you at that point.
500 feet from the summit.
Yeah.
Right, a little late for that.
Yeah, a little late.
A little late to kick in.
Yeah, I was having a moment. We have to survive.
You were having a
Take
moment.
the medication.
I wish we had a camera on that moment to show your kids in like 20 years.
Oh.
Devastated out of that camera.
Yeah.
No. I remember just the view and look at that view, and I'm like, I can't even enjoy the view right
I don't think I would change a thing.
now. No, but otherwise, no.
If I changed one thing, I'd have a ripple down effect, and like, I know there was people who I wish would have gone on the trip with us, who now I'm glad they didn't go with us.
Yeah.
I would not change
Like-
I would not add a person I would
It
certainly
was
not
such a
want anybody
perfect group.
not to go.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but sometimes I wouldn't even want to add anybody.
Right.
If
Yeah.
we were gonna go on another trip, I wouldn't open it up.
Yeah, right. Private party.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not a fundraiser anymore because we've already, we've done that.
Yeah.
Now we're clearly,
Yeah.
Like wanting to just
if you want to
enjoy it,
personally,
yeah,
not
check
enjoy it, but
some things
yeah.
off. Yeah, it was great.
Well, I think we should all walk up the incline a year from our anniversary. Just walk up, the incline and
19,000
have a drink at the top. It won't be the same, but it at least would commemorate things.
Yeah.
Because there were people that thought I was just doing this for marketing. They didn't think I was really going to do it.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Oh, are you gonna what was the common thing? Gable Hill." They were like, "Oh, are you gonna go up Gable Hill and then superimpose the mountain behind you?" Because they didn't think I was gonna do it, and so that was a motivation.
You were solid.
Mhm.
But
You-
really,
Right up.
nothing else I would have done differently.
No.
No. If I could have avoided you getting your thumb hurt,
Yeah.
I would have said, "Hey, don't do that." But nowhere in my mind did I think that you were gonna fall out of the
The
tent.
moment
So
that
I don't
you
know
guys-
how that happened.
DJ's not here right now, but DJ.
Yeah, I mean that takes a lot of explanation to get to that story,
What a rock star.
and somebody else would probably explain it to me because I'm too humble to bring that up.
That you were the rock star.
I
You
mean,
were
it
the
wasn't a
celebrity.
rock
We
star.
don't know how.
I just happen to have a good name. I think
Yeah,
is
no.
all it was.
It really was.
It was fun.
DJ Craven, in their minds, they thought he was, in quotes,
The DJ.
DJ, like, disc jockey, DJ
Did
Craven.
they really think that though?
Oh,
So
yes.
that's why every time
I
every time they would
understand.
see him, they would go DJ, DJ, DJ,
Yeah.
hey DJ, and they played off like he's a rock star.
Okay, yeah.
So it
That's
turned
fine.
out that I was, because again, all of the, there's 40 people, certainly all the guides and some of our main people that carried our packs really knew us on a personal level. But I think it kind of, my name, just by them saying it, got to the point where somebody would go by me and I didn't even know who they were. Like, I didn't even know who they were. So that's the definition of a rock star. It could be kind of part of it.
I would love that they would yell, somebody would yell, DJ, hey DJ, and you would just, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even look up. Wouldn't even look up. Just
So the story about what Jenny was referring to is that, and I think
Under the
this was
circumstances of
this
it,
was
like-
towards the end. So
Yeah.
Jay and I were tent mates, and
Yeah, I
it
think
was
last night.
it was the last night. I think it was
Yeah.
the last time we were there, and I had gone to pick a flower, and I wasn't very far away, so I could hear somebody come to our tent to do whatever it was. And instead of saying hello or anything about like just in general, it was our tent, so apparently that means it was my tent. And he was like, "Hey DJ," and Jay was like, "DJ's not here right now. May I take a message?"
Yeah.
And then again, I'm hearing this whole
He's
thing.
his personal assistant, right?
Always into the customer service.
That's right. That's right.
Quality customer service.
So funny.
I was a little side note on that. The thing that caught me most off guard was, I don't know why it caught me off guard, but I just never thought about it. In the camps at night, I mean,
You hear
there is no
everything.
privacy.
No.
Like, I knew during the day, going to the bathroom, things like that, like there'd be a lack of privacy. Like, you're gonna
Right.
pick a flower, like sort of behind a rock, and like the higher you get, like the smaller the rocks get.
Yeah.
So you
And
know,
eventually
like
you just
I
don't
knew,
care.
I knew
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
that.
I do, yeah.
I wasn't worried about that, but like at night, I mean, there's a lot of new food.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going there. There's
Yeah.
a lot of new food
There's a lot of gas
that's being
happening.
introduced
Yeah.
into everybody's diet,
Yeah.
and
How
you
about
know,
the
like
first night?
the horns at night, they're like 35. And I was not.
And we would
prepared
many
for that.
times
It's
look at
just-
each other and just like giggle at night because we were like little boys that like were just laughing at
It
it.
was the
It
coolest
funny.
thing.
Yeah, it was.
Until you're like
Zippers and horns.
Yeah, zippers and
Yeah.
horns.
zippers.
Oh, you
The first night is
Zip,
zippers
zip,
and
zip,
then
zip.
Gail.
Poor Gail.
Yeah.
And then when she gets back in the tent and she says, "I miss the bathroom? It's so bad. I should
I
probably get up.
Because I was torn. Do I bury it? What if somebody slips in it? I didn't know what to
So funny.
Yeah.
I honestly have to admit, I mean, I'm a heavy sleeper, and I did bring earplugs just in case. I put earplugs in. I heard nothing. I heard I put these earplugs in. I was out, and I had
think the
zero
first
problem
2 nights
sleeping.
I slept
I
a
wanted to-
total of like 4 hours,
Right.
4 hours. And
I did
the
not
first
sleep.
I
night,
didn't sleep the
first
first
night.
night.
Mm-mm.
After
we were
that,
too
I'm
close
pretty
to
good.
the
Yeah.
bank, and
Yeah.
I heard
Everything.
everything.
The
The zippers were all around us. People were getting sick.
Did you have earplugs?
We did, yeah, and we tried, but I still.
Maybe in. I guess I should
Yeah.
have.
No, I didn't.
With his earplugs in, yeah.
I think I did use them
Start
one or two of the
loud.
nights, but yeah, the others it wasn't an issue. I was exhausted.
I don't know. I fortunate. It's one of the things that I have the genes that I can sleep, and
Well, we were also in the rainforest those nights.
Oh, the
So
monkeys.
Yeah.
the rain,
Oh, yeah.
so the wind was a lot
You'd hear
more
them.
subtle.
Yeah.
And the monkeys going over top of us the first
Well,
night.
around. You could hear them
But,
almost around.
The
tent
higher we
and-
got, the more consistent the sound seemed to be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
once
the wind, and like you heard some zippers and you heard less zippers. The camps got more spread out. you
well, there
know.
wasn't as many
Wind.
things to bounce off of. I mean, we had all those trees and all the sounds bouncing off those trees
Yeah.
and come back at you. When we were up, as far as we were up, I mean, that sound's just dissipating.
Mhm.
So the first night we slept in a rainforest, so canopy covering us, monkeys all around us, and it slowly went through all 4 stages. Like,
Yeah.
we were in desert, which by desert being there's no living anything, but it's really cold. It's
Yeah.
cold desert,
It wasn't hot.
all the way up to the summit. So we went through all those types of vegetations.
Yeah, very, very cool experience. And outside of any other stories, the biggest thing that I guess last that I had on there was just kind of talking. We've talked a little bit about it, but really was Summit night. And just to kind of paraphrase and phrase it up for everybody that listened to this that didn't know, our wake up time we always had on every morning. We would wake up at let's just say 7:00. We would have breakfast at 7:30, and then 8:00 was leave time. So we always had that half-hour increments of that's when we did, and we did that every single time. And that got shortened a little bit on Summit night, but we woke up at what 10:30, something like that at night.
10 p.m. we
10,
left at
10
11.
p.m. and we left at 11 or 11 o'clock at night, on the headlamps and basically walking, and ultimately the summit was at 8:30 time period, so walking for those time periods. So I'll start. My summit experience was obviously it was the toughest, because really you think about when I talk about the summit experience, it's that starting that 11:30 at night, and then ending a full another day at like 7:00 at the camp that we ended up way down later, which was
p.m.
p.m.
We took a
7
little
o'clock
nap
p.m.
break. Like
We took a nap break.
2 or something.
Yeah, it was
I don't know,
an
maybe
hour or
like
2.
2.
But that 20 hours was the longest 20 hours of my life. In my
Mhm.
opinion. Just me
It was
personally. I mean,
incredibly
it
long.
was
Oh,
the
yeah.
most
Absolutely.
exhausting I've ever been.
I actually think the last 6 going into that final camp were worse than the summit.
Yes.
I was so tired, and we
I
were in
agree.
that.
Yeah, so let's
Ravine
put in context those 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
So that's
I mean,
day
the day before the
6,
climb wasn't a piece of
right?
cake
So
either.
day 6 was a long day.
Yeah.
We got into camp at 7-ish.
Well, that would have been I think that was day 5, because day 6 would have been the night of we done one on some day 6. Remember, we got into camp a little bit earlier. It was like 1 or 2
yeah,
o'clock.
That's right. We had a little bit of a climb.
Yeah.
Jenny got sick or started feeling bad because
That was the
that was the highest
15,000,
elevation we'd ever
yeah.
been by far.
Mhm.
We were around a little over 15,000. We get in the camp. Every camp had a little sign. This camp had a disclaimer. And this
It
camp had a
did.
disclaimer on the sign that says, if you're feeling X, Y, and Z, if you are these concerns, stop. Be safe. Get in the camp a little early. 7 o'clock dinner. 7 o'clock was dinner.
Yeah.
But we were all like falling asleep that night too. We were exhausted.
At dinner each night, we would get the itinerary for the next day, which is, every half an hour increments. That itinerary we knew was going to be 10 p.m., 11:30, 11 o'clock departure. We summited around 8:30. We immediately come right back down. We got back down to camp at like 1?
Yeah, noon or 1-ish. Yeah.
Noon to
Yeah.
1. We
Slept till 2.
Had
Yeah,
time
slept till
to,
2.
ate real quick. Then we slept a little bit, and then we hiked again for another 6 hours. And we got in after dark, so like 8 o'clock, something like that. And so that was that.
Yeah, it was all on basically a couple hours of sleep at most.
So sorry.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
that's the day.
context
Yeah.
to have around the summit.
I feel like I don't even, and I remember that day, it's like I didn't even remember, we started at 11, I remember having a moment where I looked up and I saw, the switchbacks of all the headlamps, and I said, wow, I feel like we're not alone, and everybody kind of chuckled, like, well, we're not alone, there's a lot of us, and I'm like, I know, but I mean, you could see the massive amount of people that were also doing that together, so I remember having that, like, good moment, and then from there to, like, the 5 a.m. where I asked the question that they told us not to ask, on summit day, don't ask how much longer. Don't ask how much. And I made it to like 5 a.m. It was before even any dawn had crested, and I was like, just miserable. I'm like, you have to tell me how much longer till the first summit.
And you said it was just around the corner.
And he's like, the sun's coming up. The sun's gonna come up. And I'm like, what? I'm like, wait, what happened to the last 4 hours or 4 or 5 hours? Like it was, you felt bad, but it was like, it wasn't that it happened quickly, but it's like I blacked out during it. Like you said, you're just going. You're like a robot that just moved. Yeah. So it was.
I never realized we would summit and come back down. I never thought past summit.
Yeah.
I never knew we did that in the same day.
Mhm.
I just assumed we'd hang out.
Yeah.
Come back down the next day.
Have a beer.
Yeah, I had no idea we'd come back down.
You're saying after we came back down to the 15,000 feet?
Well, I thought at summit we were done for the day. It never occurred to me that we'd have to hike the whole way back down again.
Oh wow, so you were really in a rude awakening.
It was.
When we had another 12 hours for the
No,
day.
I wanted to feel better. My goal was to feel better, so I was like, get us down.
We
Yeah.
hiked, another
Get us
12
down.
hours. Well, minus
So long.
1.5, 2 hours for like eating and sleep,
Yeah.
taking a quick nap. But 12 hours after
Yeah.
that. So.
Yeah, that was the only time that I didn't pack my own bag. That was the only time I didn't pack my own bag. Was that hour and a half, whatever it was, when we were sleeping. I
Now,
didn't.
who's
There was
these
not a
bag
chance I was
packers?
packing my
We never
bag.
had a bag packer.
There just wasn't a chance.
I remember wishing that Jay had all of his snacks from the first day, and the last day. when we
Yeah,
were
those
coming
are
down.
gone.
Or
Those are
being like,
gone.
do you have any more chips, Jay?
I lightened that load. You know, that was the physically the toughest part for me was, all the endorphins and all the excitement of summiting, and then coming back down. Obviously, you're using different muscles, and in my case, my knees started getting really tight. My quads were screaming at me. But also it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, I've done this, and really at that point I was ready to be done. I was ready to like, okay, we're done now, right? No, we're not. No, we got to go a long
We
ways.
were, we were definitely looking for those lights,
Yeah.
looking for that can.
Yeah, and that was one of those things where, in this case, ignorance was bliss, and that I wasn't worried about it, but I didn't really expect
Right.
the physicality of after the summit. And thankfully, again, one of the guys bailed me out and was really, really good. Sort of my crutch, and he was a human crutch that helped me, because I never ever complained about. I took every step I was taking down, I was complaining on that one trail, and I felt bad because I'm not normally a loud complainer. I complain, but I'm not usually loud about it. And I was like, every time I moved, I felt it. And
So that trail, as we're
it was a
on the
rough
descent,
trail, too.
we
It was a creek bed.
Yeah.
summited,
Yeah.
went back to the initial camp we started at that day, and then we went down a different trail back down to Moshi. Moshi is the city that we were staying at. The trail we went down was much more direct. It wasn't, the switchback wasn't as long. We didn't need to have the altitude adjustment. That trail was brutal. It was big steps. It was, you're putting a lot of pressure in your knees, a lot of pressure in your quads. That was physically the most painful part of the trip for me.
Yeah, I just, does anybody remember the wind in the middle of the night going up? That was one of the big things that I
Yeah.
feel like I remember the most of. Literally, I literally telling people that it felt like 50 miles an hour. I don't know if it actually was or not. It's like some of those gusts. I remember leaning into the wind so much that I felt like if I didn't lean into it, I was going to fall over. Like it was literally just going to blow me off the mountain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I remember.
Yeah, and it was terrible.
It was brutal. The wind was, I mean, it was windy.
I couldn't imagine not having a beard. I mean, I don't have one now, but like, I mean, because my face, was
It was cold.
frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my fingers, I mean, borderline frostbite. 2 gloves on.
Bobby Joe understands that. You were
Yeah.
freezing.
I was frozen.
Oh,
And
really?
I had 2 sets of gloves.
Was it just your hands, or was it other?
It was probably mostly my hands. My feet were cold, but I get my hands, like my right hand, my fingers will get numb anyways when it's 50 degrees. So it was just cold. I was cold.
I do remember you
And it
saying
took,
that.
I think, until the end of the day for those 2 fingers to
Yeah.
thaw out.
Didn't
Denise
have
had some frostbite.
tenderness
Yeah, she had frostbite.
or
Yeah.
tingling for numbness for a while?
Yeah, I think I can't be exact, but within 4 to 5 hours of the climb to the summit, I remember my camel bag freezing up on me. The hose freezed up.
Yeah.
Also, my canteen, my metal canteen, froze up, even though
Really?
I turned it upside down.
They told us
So I
that
went
that
without
would
water
happen,
for
but
hours. Yeah, and I
Wow.
just got just said, all right, I relented and asked that guy for water. He gave me water, but that was the toughest part for me. Even though it was cold, it was cold. I had switched mittens with Denise, and I was feeling a little bit in my hands, but I had extra pair of thin layer nylon gloves, so I put those on underneath the mittens, and I did okay. But my feet were cold, and the wind was harsh for me because I was constantly looking back, waiting for the sunrise.
Oh, I was never
And
so
it didn't
thankful
come in
to see the
time.
sun.
But,
Sure.
Yeah, but it was the coldest. Like I said, I don't like the cold, but I had to bear that.
I didn't have the cold. I don't know. I wasn't like the wind was obviously cold when it was blowing, but it was
Right.
more of me trying to just stay upright with the
Yeah.
with the
Yeah, I
coldness
felt
for me.
very like very unsteady.
Yeah, like I mean, I literally
Drunk.
felt like I put a pole in the middle of my legs and out on this leg, and then leaning into the wind like as I was walking. Like it felt like that's how I was. That's how I was walking.
And I tried to stay directly behind Denise while she was walking ahead of me. And it was just, I was straining just to stay, close proximity with her. But and it was steep too, because there was a certain part where we were
Yeah.
ascending where it was really a almost sheer cliff.
Within that
For, like,
first
couple
hour,
minutes.
it was we went up a very steep area too.
And like some sketchy, slippery areas in the
Yeah.
north too.
Oh,
Like
for
I
sure.
remember
They
there's
were
areas
helping
of
us,
like,
but-
Oh, yeah.
wait, we're gonna go up that right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Really narrow.
yeah.
It was still it was scary, and I was a little glad that we didn't have the
Small,
light to
tight
show us what
switchbacks.
was
Yeah.
on the
Right.
sides of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It probably was a good idea that we couldn't see much because again, I remember coming down like, ooh, we went up this. It's a lot
Falling
easier to go down.
asleep too. I felt like I was sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Like I feel like some of those 4 hours where I said I don't remember, I feel like I was like my eyes were closed and open and closed, and it felt like I was sleepwalking.
Who was it that fell asleep? Was it John?
DJ.
DJ? That's
A
right.
lot.
You
Yeah.
literally
A
fell
lot.
asleep.
Like I that was my toughest part was staying awake on the way
Yeah.
up.
Mhm.
Staying awake on the way up. That was literally of like, and then you guys have heard me say it, of the right foot, left foot, right foot
Mhm.
mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and it was staying awake. Like when we would take a break, it was focusing on staying awake and trying to find, my water and food and stuff. Because again, I had mittens. I couldn't do anything with my hands,
Right.
and I was literally like, I felt like I was a child. So I mean, when I have a water bottle handed to me, I will drink it, hand it back, and then he would screw the lid on, put it back in the pack that's my pack that's on his back.
Mhm.
Get out food, open it up, and like hand it, and literally like, fed it to me like a child. I mean, that,
the
Sounds
scarf
familiar.
with the
yeah.
I had my hand. I mean, you're talking to like the biggest child there then, because I mean, you had to force feed me, hold my hand. I mean, I was a disaster.
Yeah,
You were a
you were
disaster.
I was a
bad.
disaster.
You didn't use your poles at all, really, until that last day, and then you were pretty dependent on the poles until they held your hand.
Or their arm, yeah.
I mean, so yeah, like the 500 feet from summit, wherever it was, 1,000 feet, probably 500. It was pretty close, I think.
Yeah, no, it could have been closer to 1,000 even.
1,000 feet.
Yeah, I mean, you were
From
somewhere.
summit.
Stella Point to
Yeah,
summit.
Stella was.
But where she made me take the Diamox, I mean, I was starting to black out. Like I was starting to hallucinate. I was seeing things. I was seeing like animals, like little rodents and stuff running around. I was seeing people coming down the hill towards us. I went to give a guy like knuckles, like, you know, punch his fist, and he wasn't there. And then there was a guy that was over here that I almost like hit, and I'm like, what are you doing?
That was probably the point Bobby Joe and I looked at each other and said, one of them need to make it home for their children.
That was my meltdown. That was my meltdown. Because your lips were blue, like
Yeah,
you.
the blue lips were.
Yeah, I think you starting to look bad kind of helped me continue to like have a little strength to push forward.
My demise.
Your demise.
No, but I felt like one of us had to be
Somebody's gotta
strong.
put- yeah.
I felt like one of
On the
us,
life
I was
insurance.
not strong by any means, but I felt like it didn't help. It's not like I commiserated in it, but I don't know.
It was, I mean, it was horrible. I did not in any way enjoy the summit.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I was
I just wanted to
so
go down. I wanted to go
Bad.
down.
I knew.
Mhm.
When we stopped at one point along the way, close to the top, to drink coffee or drink tea, and you know, get that caffeine, get that warmth in you, and it was, you know,
That did help.
it was like in my mind, I knew that it wasn't a time to relax, but I enjoyed the warmth and I wanted to relax.
You wanted to stop.
And I forget which guy it was, who just point blank, you know, they're the sweetest guys. Like, you know, they were like your big brothers. And he just got in my face
Come on.
and said,
Or you freeze
you
to death.
stay there, you die.
You freeze to death.
It was Isaiah.
Wow.
Isaiah.
Was it?
Yeah, yeah,
He was the
yeah.
tough love guy.
He said, you know, you stay there, you die. And
You're like, oh.
I'm like, I know. And you knew.
Yeah,
I knew.
Yeah.
I wasn't lying. I knew. But I also knew that like a couple seconds more would feel really good.
It's like
And
when
he
the
said it a
alarm goes
second
off in the
time,
morning
and
then a
you
couple
knew,
more.
and
Right.
just
Yeah.
like the way he said it again, you're like, get up. He's right. Like
You just
this
gotta
isn't a game. Like you're not like you didn't just go for a long run
Right.
and
you
you're
gotta keep
tired and you have to
going.
take a break. Like he's being dead serious right now. You sit there, you'll die. And as I was sitting there, you know, he's right.
And it's just on DJ, like every time we stop, like
You
you know, you're like, yeah, that's what happened.
But like that was an important moment for me because as we progressed, I knew that things were going bad. I could tell. I mean, I was stumbling. I mean, I was falling. I didn't know I was blue. I didn't know how bad it was, but I knew it was getting bad. I was bad. I knew it was getting worse. So I knew at the same time, like,
We're gonna get there.
this has got to go one way or another. Like I've either gotta go down, or I've got to get there and I've got to get down. Like there could be no stopping, there could be no deliberation, there could be no sitting down for tea for a second. Like I have got
We're
to
gonna
like
get there and move.
go, and I knew at that point like I could not sit down again, and I just couldn't sit down again or else I was done. And then as we summited, we came back down. We ran into Anthony and Denise,
It's,
and I sat down for a second, and that was probably the biggest risk I was ever at. I think because you know Denise later told me, I don't remember sitting down, but Denise later told me I sat down. They were trying to get us to get together for a picture, and she's like, you know, you just were no good. Like you weren't responsive. You were having a lot of trouble. It wasn't even that you're falling asleep. Like your eyes weren't focused.
We're connecting. Yeah.
I mean you know, I would love to have do that trip again, but it was just that was such a bad. I was so uncomfortable. It wasn't like I sat down in my comfort zone. Like I was like, oh no.
Outside looking down.
Yeah.
It was just that was
Yeah,
really bad. And then we took our
Oh God, your
our
pulse
blood
ox.
oxygen, our pulse ox
We
was
got to the first camp.
every night we took it. You know, they documented it. They were really strict on it. We had a close regiment. We had our 1 to 10. How do you feel? They would take your pulse ox, see where your blood oxygen level is. If you're out of range, they track that. Jenny, having one at work, you know, brought it with us. We got back down to the tent.
That was when they like pulled the shoes off of all of us. Just kind of
Right.
like collapsed and just passed out. Yours was like 73 or 74,
So
and that was
73.
after we
This
had
was
descended.
After we
So
go up the
far.
summit,
And
we've
I'm like,
come
oh.
down
Right.
4,000 feet in
Yeah,
elevation.
about 4,000 feet. Yep.
And anything below 90, they're normally like, let's start paying attention to it.
Yeah.
You know, if you walk into a doctor's office and it's below 90 here, they're like, let's
That's
go
an
get
issue.
you checked out.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be walking around like that. So out of the 73 then, you've got to think that like, you know, at summit,
Definitely in the 60s. at
After
least.
we took a
60s at
nap,
least.
we were at least both in the 80s.
and then, you know, you
Yeah.
take a nap, you eat, and you go back down
Yeah.
a couple thousand feet, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can do cartwheels.
Yeah, you're fine.
I felt great.
It's
I
amazing
felt
on how
way
much
better
oxygen
going
can
down
do.
after
great.
our nap than I did the
Unreal.
the other for sure. But-
I was so set on trying to get there, and I kind of had the mentality before I was there, but it ended up reassuring me because everything that happened that they did, were able to get Sandy down before we had gotten there. I just felt so secure, and maybe that was naive of me or not, of if something happens to me, they're going to take care of me, meaning
Right.
the guides. And I also felt that somebody else is going to stop me from going. Like, I wasn't going to stop myself.
The urgency in Isaiah's voice when he yelled at me triggered it for me. Like,
Yeah.
they may not be able to take care of me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like,
Really?
there is a point where, like, you know, like,
Yeah, I'm
he's
sure.
yelling
Yeah.
at me.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't yell at me. And
Like,
that
he
was
wanted you to move.
Yeah.
we're now in the risk zone.
Yeah. Certainly.
But why don't you give Sandy?
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned Sandy at all.
Yeah, Sandy obviously couldn't be here today. You know, she. And what camp was it that Sandy made it? I know
So
I
it was Bronco
documented it.
camp.
Yeah.
It was after
We got
it was
you.
after Baraka Wall.
Cause she got to camp around what, like 7?
And she
Like,
killed it.
Yeah.
She did so good
Up the
that
wall,
day. Up
yeah.
the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Like
Bronco
impressive.
Wall is the only technical part of the entire climb. It's a 900-foot wall.
Yeah.
You go up.
Yeah, and you know, she made it through that, and then after we got off the wall, we separated a little bit, and she stayed back with some guides, and as Jenny mentioned, she came into camp much later than everybody else. I think we might even have been almost through dinner,
I think
at
so.
that
we
point.
were, and then resting because I didn't even see her come back in the tent.
Everybody's
Dawn
napping.
said that
It was
she
just
came back.
Vietnamese.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
It was,
I was in there when she came. I remember when she came in because they came in the other door, and we kind of moved a bunch of
I think
chairs
it
and
came in later.
everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could tell. I mean, she was on oxygen, and it was kind of like it seemed like the unwritten rule of like once you go on oxygen for that long a period of time or anything
have to
like
go.
that's we're
You
calling it
can't
quits.
keep pushing forward. You
Right.
need to go back down.
You know, and because of that, they called it quits. And again, it was late. I don't know if the weather was a factor, but they couldn't heli her out.
What was the weather? Yeah.
So you know, they basically had. Sorry, the beeping. They had one guide, Mark, and what, 5 other of the porters took her down on a stretcher from, you know, over 10,000 feet
I still.
and got down. I think they got to Moshi by like 1 o'clock in the morning or something silly.
She's
Wasn't it like
strapped
Yeah.
on there.
Strapped
in a
on a-
sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Hands to her side.
flat?
Can you imagine?
Like
I remember her telling the story. I don't know if you guys, again, she's not here, so we'll just share it. She told us this must have been after we got down, because again, it's in the dark. And I remember her saying, they set me down, and they're obviously talking in their language, not the language of Swahili, that she could understand. And she could understand that something was going a little bit wrong. And then she remembers seeing all of these lights go up this big boulder, and then come back down the boulder. And then they're still talking back in Swahili, back and forth. And next thing you know, she's going up the boulder, up and over the boulder, and then ended up coming down the other side with them
I
just
haven't heard
carrying her
that
all the
one.
way down.
oh no,
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
I remember telling that story when we got down.
I mean, you knew that they were rock stars for doing that and getting her out of there so efficiently.
Oh, yeah.
But when we came down on that trail and we asked, like, is this where they came down? And they said yes. We're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was so rough.
There's just no
and
way.
it was just not a smooth trail to be going down. So
And in the dark.
In the
yeah,
dark.
and she said the shock absorber on the stretcher was broken too. So I mean,
She felt all of
you
the.
felt those
Oh,
big,
yeah.
you know. But I mean,
And I remember the one thing she did say was she had to insist that they let her pick a flower.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, they wouldn't let her out of the stretcher. And finally she told me,
You want to let me
Just do it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's a long way to be carried down, but yeah.
Yeah, she said they carried it down for almost 13 hours.
It's nuts.
Amazing. I
Crazy.
mean, that,
Continuous. Yeah.
the people were so amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy to think on that they were able to do that again, and we heard that, and we somewhat knew that to some degree before we got up there, and that, I don't know, gave me another sense of security
Right.
a little bit of being up there and how awesome the whole thing
They
was.
would take care of you.
Yeah. And I think, you know, another thing that you mentioned it earlier about like perspective. Did any of this trip change anybody's perspective in any way? Whether it be from, you know, being in a, you know, in a country that is a little bit, you know, underdeveloped than what we're used to,
Right.
and then also, you know, being able to you know, to do what we did and overcoming challenges and all that kind of stuff. Did anybody have that moment at all, like even while they were on the mountain or afterwards at all?
Absolutely. I think I remember talking with both of you more than anyone about like, God, look at so happy and how much joy, and we'd be like,
Rashid.
yeah, and
Happy,
Rashid,
happy.
happy, and I have his picture on my
Yeah.
bulletin board in the office when I'm having a day where I'm just frustrated with the mundane things that we all run into in our work and in our day or with family or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I look at him with his smile and his hands up like this, like when he'd be like, ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Happy.
And
Yeah.
like just find the joy,
Right.
you know, in the hard, in whatever it may be. So that was my big perspective change. And I still fight with that because it's hard when you come back into your everyday
Right.
life to not still get caught up in those things. And my husband could tell you that I definitely still struggle with those things, but I try really hard because of, and I try to put myself back in that place and think, you know, find the joy in every day.
Yeah.
Find the happiness.
Anybody else perspective? Anybody else have anything more on that?
I was really intimidated about raising the funds to go, the $10,000. And I think when I got that email, congratulations, you've hit your 10,000. I don't think I've ever been so happy. I just thought it just seemed
But the
impossible
community will
to
step
me.
up.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
that's
I was scared about that too, and I knew,
Yeah.
you know, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, Don will help me, and he was not. I mean, he did help guide me, but he was like, no, you have to do this. You can do this. You go. You know, and I'm like, wait, you're not gonna what? You know, but that was challenging. That was scary for me too. It's not my realm.
What was the question?
Perspective. Did the trip change your perspective at all?
John would say yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
John, and I think it changed John's life.
Yeah.
I think John
really good.
was always a good guy. John is a better person for that trip.
And he brings the best playlist.
Yes.
His
Yeah.
music.
I
Yeah,
still
he's our
when we're at
true
the gym, I was
DJ.
like,
Yeah,
can
he
you
was.
put on the Swagger playlist? And he
Yes,
smiled.
Swagger.
I'm like, that's my favorite.
I don't know how many times I heard John say when we were in Tanzania that he was treated better there than by most of his
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah, he told me
You're
that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
and he meant that. And I mean, I think, you know, I have a lot of great family, a lot of great friends, but the people there, you know, I would second that. They cared about us. You know, I say it
Genuinely.
didn't want me to die on that rock.
Right? Yeah.
It wasn't just because, you know, we were giving him a tip or whatever. Like, you know, it was genuine.
Well, I think John, I mean, one moment when he was really not feeling well, and Augustine, you know, came in his tent and would really, he's like, he really cares.
Yeah.
He's like being like my dad, mom. You
Yeah,
know, he's
John
taking
got-
that role.
John got sick on day 5.
Yeah, yeah.
Somewhere between 4 or 5, yeah.
We hit like a little, we went up to
Yeah.
like 14,000 or something like that. Then we came back down, John and I. Well, John got altitude sickness for sure. I don't know if I got altitude sickness or just didn't
Malnourished.
eat right.
Yeah.
I think I was malnourished, and because I ate lunch and it was just like, yes, back to God.
Yeah.
John started taking Valium oxide and it was better. But I think that was you know, John had always felt like he was cared for, and then, you know, when he was sick and vulnerable, I mean, you know, Gail, right? Like, when you're like that, like you're already vulnerable. You know, you're
You
climbing
can't do
this
anything for
outside your
yourself.
comfort zone, and then when you're sick, you know, you've got nobody there, it feels like.
Right.
And, you know, to see them come to the tent, check on him, like, that was...
Force him to eat cold food because
Yeah.
he refused it 2 times prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about you, Jay? Any perspective change?
Well, I actually came along expecting a little bit of competition amongst you younger guys. But I think after
Second
getting there
place is fine.
and seeing everybody and just like you said, everybody sort of sync together. I just said, well, let me just take a back seat and just relax and enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I concentrated. I deflected more towards the knees than anything else. So I didn't really worry myself about how am I going to perform or do anything. I'm just going to just go along for a ride and enjoy this.
Yeah.
And that's what I
You
did.
can see that
You
you're
could.
enjoying it.
You
Yeah.
guys got the outstanding couple award.
Yeah.
Just the
Oh.
genuine love. When she would just turn and say, "Hey, how you
Mr.
doing,
Johnson."
Johnson?" It was just
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
It was
Knock
very,
it off,
very
Johnson.
sweet.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Cute.
Well, I think I could have opened a florist shop the way I was going, picking flowers.
That
was the only problem I
The one
had.
picture we
Yeah,
have of
you
you
were.
standing behind the rock.
Yeah. Every video where Pan would be like, oh, there he is again.
There he is again.
Dang it.
That was the only unsettling thing, you know. But, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I could do it again. I would like to do it again, to be honest. Knowing what I know now, of course.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that knowledge for sure.
I think for me it was about, I was able to focus on one thing, and we talked about this a lot about, the idea, the concept of one foot in front of the other, and there's actually I've got a poster now that I have posted up about, don't worry about the rest of the steps, worry about that first step that you're going to take, and don't get too caught up and down the road. For me, I've always worried about down the road. I've always worried about plan A, plan B, plan C, and had a plan, for further down. I think what it's done is really, really narrow my focus and say, okay, what am I doing today? And, really living in the moment. Whether it's my work life or my personal life, I am waking up with a different outlook on things and say, okay, today is all I gotta worry about, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that you don't have other things going on. It just means that I think I have a more of an appreciation of the moment that I'm in, and every day I wake up and I'm thankful for what I got. I'm thankful for the family. I'm thankful for my friends. After that, that's all I need.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. A kind of combination of a lot of you is that for me it's a reassuring perspective. Like, there's 7 to 8 billion people in the world, and the fact that we're sitting in this room right now means that we've got a better life than a lot of other people in the world. And not that we experience that specifically out there, but that's just kind of how I think of it generally. And for us to go there and to be able to see some of that, kind of somewhat firsthand, and I don't know what just popped in my head about John having to buy 1,900 bracelets. It felt like by that one guy in the market, but
Forgot about the bracelets.
just different things that you can take away from this thing. And I think perspective is a big word, and definitely reassuring for me. So I don't have a whole lot else. I know I appreciate everybody's time. If anybody has any other stories, more than welcome to chime in now. Any kind of closing thoughts by anybody, feel free to open floor. But if not, we'll wrap this thing up. Anybody had any final thoughts that they want to share out?
I wish we had a recording of Augustine's "Set Your Mind"
Yeah.
talking. That was one of my big regrets. Is not
Augustine, the head guy.
our head guy not having maybe recorded or videotaped him doing our discussion of the next day.
Yep.
That was a big.
John does have a good recording of him screaming Farkle.
Yes.
We need to get that.
Yeah.
That would be our second best.
He was so excited.
Maybe you can edit this and add a little bit of the video.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna add some video.
Overlay
Yeah,
some of the footage.
yeah, intermingle and stuff
and the
for sure.
song.
Yeah.
But I also, so the greatest joys I've ever experienced, I think, have come on the other side of a decision where somebody has said to me, that's stupid. Honestly, where somebody has said to me, you can't. Or somebody has said to me, you don't know what you're doing. People judged this decision before I even introduced it to everybody.
Yeah.
When they heard that Jenny and I were both going, we have 3 children. At the time, one was just turning 1, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. When they're still 5 and 7 at the time. We got a lot of grief for that.
Yeah.
When I went to Haiti, my marathons, like everything, like taking blind kids skiing. Everybody, what, that is just, are you crazy? And all of those experiences have been the greatest rewards in my life, outside of, family and things like that.
Yeah.
But now, some of the times people said that to me, they've been horrible. I failed miserably. The greatest risk, the greatest reward is on that side of your discomfort and your willingness to see something that others may not like, but you know what? Who cares? If we all would have said, well, what is my mom gonna say about me climbing Mount Kilimanjaro? Or like my buddy who's, who cares?
Right.
If you are leading a life based off of what the opinions of other people, you need to step outside that, right? Like this challenged us, not just physically. I mean, physically, it sucks for me physically at the summit. Like it was really bad, but it was more of just the discomfort. Like I didn't want to get on that plane to leave. I didn't prepare for this. My boots had 3 miles on them. And it wasn't me saying like, well, my machismo, I don't need to do it. It was me deflecting the fact that I'm going to do it because I didn't want to leave my children. Like if I don't pack, if I don't train, that just means that it's further away. I can deflect that further because my discomfort was in when I knew getting on that plane was going to be my threshold for, oh no, like what am I doing? And that was like, if I could deflect that longer, great. But I think, the best feelings in the world, the most happiness I feel is, when you get outside that comfort zone. Like if you are going through a life and you're just doing your 9 to 5 and you're just living this vanilla thing because somebody told you that's what you're supposed to do. Like that to me is, I did it until like a couple years ago. I mean, and I went, to Haiti when I was 20 something, and I did all this stuff. But like that wasn't still. It was just me doing that. When you make the decision, like, look, I'm gonna live a life that I want to live, that gets me outside of what other people. I don't give a rat's ass about what anybody says.
Yeah. And
look, I was up until 1 o'clock last night fixing our plumbing in our house. She yells at me,
Do you have
"You're
water?
not a plumber." We finally have water. You're not a plumber. What are you doing? Like, I get it from like, we all get it. I give her grief. Like, but I don't care. I mean, no offense, but like, I know I'm not a plumber, but I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna learn it. I'm gonna fail.
Right.
I didn't get the answer last night.
Yeah.
After 12 hours of work at 1 a.m., I knew what the problem was. I just didn't get there, but I still did it. Like it just. I encourage anybody who's listening. Like you've got to just go for it. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to fail.
That's how you learn.
But dang, that's a lesson, right? Like that's a lesson. That's not a failure. If you look at it like, if you let that hold you down, then that's a failure.
Right.
What
You
did
know,
I
if
learn?
you
How
accept
can I-
that as a step in the process of life and experiencing what you're here for, that's a lesson. And all of us combined, like we won this trip, and it was a lesson and an experience, a victory, and it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
Yes.
Yay.
Well said. Well, with that, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you on the other side. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Fun.